We are live streaming, Mayor, and our mics are live. Okay. Good afternoon. I will now, it's 12 o'clock, and I'll call today's special council meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us, and I'm just looking to accept the agenda as presented, as this is a special council meeting. Sorry, actually, I'm going to back up one moment. We have Councillor Brown on Zoom, just so everybody is aware that Councillor Brown is there. Welcome, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. So as I was saying, because this is a special council meeting, we accept the agenda as presented. So looking for motion to accept, please. Councillor Phillips. Okay. All in favor of that motion? Councillor Brown in favor?
In favor.
Okay. That motion is carried. Thank you. We now have we have a delegation. Welcome to Wade Noble and Partners. We have James Wade and Kathy. Welcome. I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right, good afternoon. I would first like to thank Betty and Nicole and the rest of the town staff who assisted us throughout the audit and made it easier than most years. The objectives of the audit are for our responsibility is to express an opinion on these consolidated financial statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian auditing standards. Those standards require that we comply with ethical requirements and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated financial statements are free from material misstatement. Our statements are prepared for the council and management, the provincial government, ratepayers, and other interested parties in the financial operations of the town. Canadian audit standards also require that the auditor address the audit committee, or in this case, town council, during the audit as required to. Give our assurance to the independence, which we do now, and have also done in a letter provided during the planning phase of the audit. Our outline, the responsibilities that rest with the council and management versus the responsibilities of the auditor with respect to the financial statements. The preparation and the fair presentation of the financial statements is the town's responsibility. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on these consolidated financial statements via the audit report, determining materiality based on needs, expectations, and sensitivities of financial users, assessing and design the application of town's internal controls over the financial reporting process, and recommend any improvements. We receive the full cooperation from management. We have no disagreements with management, and we're not adequately resolved. We were not made aware of any potential fraudulent activity. Based on the work, we did not find any evidence of fraud. We did not encounter any other indications of illegal or possibly illegal acts nor any fraud. We will issue a short letter to management with observations and recommendations designed to help the town improve their system of control and internal control and other matters over the next couple of days. Matters considered to be significant weaknesses in internal control, we will also additionally report to council in our audit findings letter, which I think I gave to Betty or Nicole. Okay, so then we're going to quickly take a look at the financial information. Again, we're just going to highlight a couple areas. So if we look at our labeled page 1, which is about the 4th page, consolidated statement of financial position. And we can see that cash and temporary investments are up to just about 18.4 million in 2002, up from 17.6 last year. If we look at the receivables, we can see that it's up $928,000, which I believe is basically government grants for capital purchases. Liabilities are up 770, primarily due to the increase in the long-term debt, the debenture. Other than that, they were very comparable. The non-financial asset increased $3.1 million, and the accumulated surplus up 5.1, and we'll get into that shortly. And if we want to flip now to just the next page, probably the consolidated statement of operations. So comparing it to last year, you can see where last year was 2.1 million and now it's 20.5 million overall, so down $900,000. The taxes basically were virtually the same as last year, and there were some minor changes. The biggest change was from government transfers. The expenses, overall expenses, again, are $1.3 million lower than last year. The biggest change being in administration was down over $500,000. It also includes any losses on disposal of tangible capital assets. And again, kind of the number that you guys always are interested in is the operation show resulted in $1,019,000 of revenue over expenditures. And then we add the transfers from government, generally for capital, which is another 4.066 million. So your overall excess revenues over expenditures is $5,086,000. A lot of that is then allocated and has been allocated into your reserves for future capital projects. So if we flip now to, again, page 5, and it's usually the one that the staple, it's on the left-hand side instead, so the staple takes over it. And it's called Consolidated Schedule of Changes in Accumulated Surplus. If we look at last year's totals, we can see that your unrestricted surplus was 7.8, and your restricted surplus was 7.3, and your equity and tangible capital assets was 85 million, for a total of just over $100 million worth of accumulated surplus. If we look at all the transactions and proceed, if we add, we can certainly see the very first one is the $5 million, which is the excess revenue over expenditures and the allocation of the capital revenue to get to your $5 million. And it goes, you can see it goes basically straight across into your surplus. But when you look at the individual surpluses, you can see your restricted surplus, which has the 5 million go into it. Then it has adjustments for either the tangible capital assets where you buy assets, dispose of assets, those type of things. And then you can see restricted surplus where it had a large allocation to it of $11.7 million, which is basically increases your restricted surplus for future capital projects or other projects, as well as any reserves that you increased. So when you look at the final bottom numbers, you can see that what's left is you have unrestricted surplus of $2.7 million, restricted surplus of $15 million, equity and tangible capital assets of $88 million, for a total of just under $106 million. Again, if I was going to highlight a couple of things, it was basically that you had surplus of $1 million before the capital, and then you increased your reserves or your restricted surplus in this case to $15 million, which is earmarked for future projects and reserves that you are required to have on hand, and that you only have $2.7 million of surplus. That would be the highlights of your financial statements. Now, I'm good for any questions, or if anything you want to particularly dig into deeper. Again, we could be here as long as you want.
I have a question about the government, because of the MOST grant. Where did that fall into this? I guess that's more Betty question.
It's in the operating under provincial grants.
Okay.
So then it would, it would be in right in your, it would not fall in the capital one if that's an operating grant.
No, sorry, yeah. Okay, does anybody have any other questions? No other questions? Councillor Brown, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I have no questions.
Okay. Does admin have any comments that you'd like to make, or?
Go ahead.
Well, I do have, if you want more information, but I mean, I would like to just say I commend all the staff that help.
Betty, I just wonder if,
Oh.
Laura, I wonder if we could do that mic there.
Sure.
Awesome.
Great idea.
Okay.
I would like to thank all the staff here as well as our auditors. It was probably one of the best audits I think I've ever done. We're so ahead of the game. We've got the journal entries all posted and we're ready to close the year end. Working with the auditors this year went really well. So I'm quite happy with the whole process. I guess, when I look at at the analysis of the statements, and this is just very high level, but to me, it shows me that this organization is very responsive. If we pull the most grant out, which was like, I think 570 some odd thousand that we recognized, we have about an $8,000 deficit if you pull that out. So it shows that the organization, which, you know, I look at from council down to all staff, was very responsive in reflecting a worldwide 100-year event catastrophe, really. So it shows that we were really able to steer this organization, and basically the money that we lost in terms of revenue, people addressed it in the operations, and we came out, I think, very successfully. So when I look at the statements, I think it's very reflective of a responsive organization. And yeah, the audit went well, and we're looking forward to making even more improvements for next year. So those are my comments.
Thanks, Betty. No, and I echo that, and I want to thank everybody as well. These are great statements, and it's taking us forward. Hopefully we can have a next year with the majority of this year without the pandemic, get back to normal. So thank you very much. No other comments, questions? Okay. So having no other comments or questions, I'm just looking for a motion then to please accept the audited financial statements as presented. Councillor Narang? Okay, everybody clear on that motion? All in favor of that motion? Councillor Brown?
In favor.
Thank you. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. I guess we have one more paper in front of us that you gave us this morning, Betty, about the surplus.
Yeah, so we do have a policy that allocates surplus, and I just did up a little table showing you what the percentages are to the various reserves. So if you want to pass this motion today, you can pass it, and then we will post it in 2021, but then the reserve or surplus is reallocated.
Okay. Is there a downfall to passing that today, or is there a reason we shouldn't pass this today, the surplus allocation?
Not in my mind. If we don't do it today, we'll just have to bring it back to the next council meeting. So to me, it just kind of keeps everything all in one meeting.
Councillor Brown, you didn't receive this sheet though today, did you?
That's correct.
Oh,
So maybe we should wait until Councillor Brown actually sees this as well.
okay.
So if we could just hold off until that and put it to the next meeting. Thank you very much. Well, seeing no other comments or there's nothing else on our agenda. It is 12:13 and I will adjourn this meeting. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Councillor Brown, for zooming in.